The United Nations World Food Programme announced cuts to a voucher program that feeds 1.7 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, Iraq and Egypt, citing a lack of funding. Despite an emergency grant from the United States, the program still doesn't have enough money to get through December. Many refugees are now weighing their options and hoping for better news in the coming days. To give us more on this developing story, I'm joined now by CCTV's Natalie Carney. She joins us from Istanbul. And Natalie, how dependent are the Syrian refugees on these vouchers from the UN?
Well, for the approximate 1.7 million people that they serviced, quite substantially dependent on them. But to put it in a greater context, that really is only a fraction of the Syrian people in need. According to the UNHCR, there's roughly 9 million Syrians that have had to leave their homes. About 3.5 have come to neighboring countries. Another 6.5 million within the country itself, internally displaced. As far as Turkey is concerned, there's about 1.6 million refugees here, with only, though, about 250,000 within the camps with access to these food vouchers from the World Food Programme. So those outside the camps have been really heavily dependent on other NGOs, as well as the kind donations of the community, and as well as the menial work that they've been able to find scattered across the country, be it legal or illegal, and as well as begging. But again, we're going to see a lot more pressure on these alternatives now with these cuts in the World Food Programme. So the situation is quite dire, and let's not forget as well the adverse effects this doesn't just have on food sustenance, but also in healthcare and as well on security as people become more and more desperate.
Now, Natalie, some of these countries that are hosting substantial numbers of Syrian refugees, countries like Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon, what are they doing about this? Are they stepping in?
Well, we haven't heard per se from any government officials in response directly to these World Food Programme cuts about how they may increase food supply to the refugees. But the EU, an EU delegation, the EU Foreign Policy Chief, is here in Turkey at the moment, has pledged an additional $85 million to the humanitarian cost for Syrian refugees. Now, whether some of that might go to help sustain this World Food Programme is yet to be known, but at least we're seeing some extra money coming in following the World Food Programme announcement there. Now, as far as Turkey again is concerned, prior to this announcement, one area that could possibly help these people is Turkey has been contemplating the idea of providing some refugees with work permits. Now, of course, this will then entitle them to be legal and work legally within the country and then find some means to sustain their family, in part with food. But as far as all the neighboring countries harboring Syrian refugees, it's most likely to probably affect Lebanon the most, due in part to the fact that they're struggling the most to try to absorb their some 1.5 million Syrian refugees, in part due to their small geographical size, as well as their political and economic instability. And let's not forget the sour relations, historic relations between Syria and Lebanon. So all across the board, it is going to hurt everybody.
And we're now getting into the middle of winter in that part of the world. I mean, how greater is this challenge going to become?
Well, of course, one of the biggest challenges during the winter season is sheltering inside the camps. That doesn't seem to be too much of an issue, of course, because there's many tents, but how well equipped these tents are for winter can sometimes be an issue. However, outside the camps, and as I mentioned, there's only a small percentage of the 9 million displaced Syrians inside adequately equipped camps. Shelter is a huge issue. Some people might have found rented apartments or a roof over their heads, let's say, but they don't have substantial heating to get them through the winter months. So that's a huge area of concern. And now especially with this need to focus on food reserves for people, that's going to cut back from other areas, such as blanket donations or clothing donations for some people. So this is becoming an even more severe situation now that it's going to adversely affect a lot of other areas, as well as just the food sustenance for these people. So it's a very desperate situation. It always is in wintertime, and as the Syrian war continues into its 4th year, it only continues to be.
Thanks, Natalie. CCTV's Natalie Carney there reporting from Istanbul.